A simple black woman missed her flight to help an old man, unaware he owned the airline. Have you ever had to choose between doing what's right and doing what's safe? Have you ever watched your one shot disappear because you stopped to help someone who couldn't even say thank you? Have you ever thought your life was small until you found out it wasn't? I need you to come with me. Now. The security guard's voice was firm but low, barely cutting through the noise of the terminal. Tanya's heart slammed so hard she felt it in her ears. She was still catching her breath, her chest heaving from the sprint through Terminal C, her shoes half on, her suitcase rolling behind her with a busted wheel. Her flight, her future, had just taken off without her. I just need to explain. There was an old man, she stammered. The guard didn't answer. He just looked to his left. Tanya followed his eyes. A man in a charcoal suit stepped forward. Not TSA. Not airport staff. He didn't even look like he belonged there. No ID badge. No walkie. Just stillness, sharp eyes, and an expression that made her spine tighten. I know who you are, he said, and I know what you did. He paused, looked her over, like he was still deciding something. But what I don't know, he said, his voice quiet and cold, is why. Tanya blinked at him. Her body froze. How could he possibly know? And what the hell did he mean? Why? 10 hours earlier, Tanya Hill had been pouring orange juice into her mother's favorite thermos when the toast popped. She always burnt the first slice, no matter how low she set the dial. She popped in another, yawned, and checked the time. 4:47 a.m. She hadn't slept more than 2 hours. Again, there was too much in her head. The interview, the flight, the money, the fee. But mostly, the hope. That soft, wild, stupid hope. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and went to check on her mom. Ma, she said, cracking the bedroom door open. Came a voice from the dark. I'm about to head out. The meds are by your bed. I'll be back tomorrow night. I'll call when I land, okay? Her mother stared, pushing up on one elbow. You packed the blazer. Tanya smiled, folded it in tissue like you said. Then you'll get the job. Her mother's voice was raspy but proud. They'd be fools not to take you. Tanya didn't answer right away, just stood there, hand on the doorframe, feeling the weight of everything. I'll call you from the airport, she said. Love you, Ma. Love you, baby. The ride to the airport was quiet. Tanya didn't play music. She liked to hear the road. It made her feel grounded. Even now, with her stomach knotted and her thoughts a blur, she drove like she always did, 10 and 2, no sudden moves, windows cracked just enough to let the world in. The flight to New York was supposed to leave at 7:10. She was checked in by 6:12. That was early. She never cut it close. Tanya didn't believe in giving the universe excuses to mess with her. She was wearing the one decent suit she owned, a soft navy blue, tailored to her curves, and had her resume printed on thick paper, tucked into a leather folder she'd bought from a thrift store for $3. She found her gate. She had time. So she walked to get a coffee. The line at the little kiosk was long, moving slow. It didn't matter. She had time. Enough time to let herself breathe, sip something hot, maybe even go over her pitch again. That's when she saw him. An older man, older like he could have been in his 80s, was struggling with a small duffel bag near the trash can. He was wearing a too-thin coat and leaning hard on a cane. He dropped something, bent too far to pick it up, and fell. No one moved. A few people glanced. One even stepped over him. Tanya looked back at the coffee line. At the time on her phone. At her gate. Then she turned and walked straight to him. So, are you hurt? He didn't answer right away. His eyes were pale and watery, and his lips looked chapped. He smelled faintly of tobacco and wintergreen. I just need to get up, he whispered. She crouched and slipped her arm under his. He was lighter than he looked, bones like kindling, jacket loose on his frame. It took longer than it should have, but she got him on his feet. Where were you headed? She asked. He didn't seem to know. Or maybe he didn't want to say. So she walked him to a bench, sat with him, gave him her water, dug in her bag for a granola bar. Do you have anyone you can call? He shook his head slowly. Tanya looked at the time again. Her gate wasn't far, but her window was shrinking. She asked an employee to page the terminal staff for help. They said someone would come, but no one did. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. The man coughed, a deep, rattling sound. She looked into his face and saw something that made her stop checking the clock. He was scared. She stayed. By the time someone came, an airport volunteer with kind eyes and a wheelchair, her flight had closed boarding. She ran anyway, bag bumping her leg, hair falling from its bun. She made it to the gate just in time to see the jet bridge retracting. "Please," she said, breathless. "I was helping someone, an elderly man. I missed boarding by maybe a minute. I'm sorry. The flight's gone." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out, just the echo of everything she'd worked for slipping through her hands. She was still standing there, stunned, when the security guard walked up behind her. "I need you to come with me. Now." Back in the security hallway, she stared at the man in the suit, her breath coming hard and shallow. "I know who you are," he said again, "and I know what you did." Tanya tried to find her voice. "I don't understand." The man cut her off. "That man you helped," he said, watching her. "That was my father." Her mouth fell open. "He was testing the system," he said. "Testing people. He does that sometimes. You're the only one who stopped. Out of over 300 today." Tanya blinked. "I wasn't trying to." He raised a hand. "I'm not interested in apologies," he said. "I'm interested in character." He stepped forward, slid something across the small metal table between them. A first-class ticket. To New York. On a flight leaving in 20 minutes. She stayed at it, then up at him. "Who are you?" she whispered. He smiled, just barely. "I own the airline." Then he turned and walked away, and Tanya just stood there, shaking, staring at the ticket, wondering, what happens now? Tanya's hand hovered over the ticket like it might vanish if she touched it too fast. The words on the boarding pass didn't change. First class, gate B12, JFK, boarding in 14 minutes. Her name was printed on it. Her name. She looked up. The man in the suit was gone. The guard who'd brought her in leaned on the doorframe, arms folded. "You gonna take it?" She blinked at him. Was that real? Sure looked real to me. He gave her a nod, then stepped aside. No more explanations. No escort. No fanfare. Just a hallway leading back into the terminal. Tanya grabbed the ticket and walked. The airport noise hit her like a wave, babies crying, intercoms paging, roller bags clattering on tile. But she barely heard it. Her heart was loud in her ears. Her fingers clutched the boarding pass like it was a lifeline. She didn't run this time. She walked fast, but steady. Her whole body was vibrating, like her cells hadn't caught up to what had just happened. Her head spun with questions she didn't have time to ask. Why was he testing people? Why how? What exactly had she been chosen for? When she got to gate B12, they were already boarding Group 2. The woman at the podium scanned Tanya's new ticket and gave her a quick glance, eyes flicking from her scuffed shoes to the sweat on her temple. "Have a nice flight, Miss Hill." Tanya stepped onto the jet bridge, legs shaky. Inside the plane, the first-class section was nearly full. She slid into seat 2A and sat still for a long moment. Everything around her was so clean, soft, a far cry from the crowded back rows she was used to, squeezed between armrest hogs and kids kicking the seat. She set her bag under the seat and buckled in. When the flight attendant came by offering drinks, Tanya asked for water. Her voice sounded hollow in her own ears, like someone else had borrowed it. They took off right on time. As the plane rose above the clouds, she stared out the window, gripping the armrest like it could tell her what the hell just happened. She didn't even begin to calm down until they were in the air, cruising. She got up to go to the bathroom, splashed cold water on her face, and stared at herself in the mirror. Big brown eyes, neat eyebrows, lips she hadn't touched up since 4:30 that morning. She looked tired. She looked terrified. But she also looked like someone who was exactly where she was meant to be. Back at her seat, she dug out her phone and turned it on. 6 missed calls. 3 texts from her mom. She called her first. "Baby, you make it on the plane." Tanya almost started crying just at the sound of her mother's voice. "Yeah, Ma," she said. "I made it. You sound funny. You okay?" She paused. "How do you explain that you missed your flight but someone who secretly owns the damn airline gave you a seat on another one? That you helped a man you thought was just frail and lost, only to find out he might have been testing your heart? I'm okay, she said softly. I'll tell you everything later. Her mom paused. Was it the blazer? Tanya smiled through tears. Maybe it was. She ended the call and sat back. Took a deep breath. The seat next to her was empty for most of the flight. But just before they began descending, a flight attendant tapped her shoulder. Miss Hill? Someone would like a word with you after we land. She turned, startled. Who? The woman smiled. You'll see. At JFK. The gate agent met her as she stepped off the plane. Tanya's stomach flipped again. She followed the woman through the terminal without a word, past other gates, down a restricted hallway, into a private lounge with floor-to-ceiling windows and velvet chairs. The same man from before was sitting at a table, reading. He looked up. Tanya. She stood frozen. Is this some kind of setup? He closed the book gently. Not a setup. A test. Why me? He didn't answer right away, just studied her for a long moment. My father started this company with nothing. Grew up picking cotton in Georgia. Built this airline from a single Cessna he bought with borrowed money. But as the business grew, he stopped trusting numbers and resumes. Started trusting instinct. He'd do things like this now and then, have someone pose as a janitor, a homeless man, a traveler in trouble. See who would stop, who would help. Most don't. Tanya crossed her arms. So this was about, what? Morals. It was about empathy, he said simply, and integrity. She shook her head. I was just doing what anybody should have done. He nodded. Exactly. But almost no one does. Tanya looked down, unsure what to say. Her fingers played with the edge of the ticket still in her pocket. Then he stood, walked over, held out a plain white envelope. She took it. Inside was a check. $5,000. She stayed at it, then at him. What is this? Call it a thank you. And a gesture. There's more, if you want it. She blinked. More. He gave her a look. How badly do you want this job you're flying in for? I'd give anything. He raised an eyebrow. What if you didn't have to? Tanya swallowed. I don't understand. He smiled. You will. Then he handed her a business card. A different one this time. It had only 3 words on it. Come find me. She looked up to ask something else, but the room was already empty, and Tanya Hill stood in the center of a world she had never expected to enter, wondering what door had just been opened, and what would happen if she walked through it. Tanya stared at the card. No phone number, no email, just a name she didn't recognize, Charles M. Willison, printed in small gold lettering, and those 3 strange words underneath. Come find me. The quiet of the private lounge wrapped around her like a coat she hadn't asked for. She tucked the card into her blazer pocket next to the check. It felt heavy for something so small. A soft chime echoed from her phone. A reminder. Interview with Livingston Partners, 3:30 p.m. Tanya blinked at the screen, suddenly pulled back to reality. She had less than 2 hours to get across town, clean up, and somehow pretend her world hadn't just cracked open. She left the lounge with one more glance over her shoulder, as if someone might stop her. But no one did. The cab ride into Manhattan was a blur of honking, flashing lights, and wet pavement. Rain had started to fall, light and fast, brushing the window in diagonal streaks. Tanya stared out at the gray skyline and tried to rehearse the lines she'd practiced the night before. I believe data tells stories, and I know how to read them. I've led 2 community analytics projects from scratch. I've been poor, tired, and underestimated, but I've never been unprepared. Now, the words felt flat. The man in the airport. The ticket. The check. The mysterious card. Her mind kept circling it, like fingers around a loose thread in her sweater. She knew better than to pull, but she also knew she couldn't leave it alone. When the cab finally stopped in front of a tall glass building on Madison Avenue, Tanya paid the fare with shaking hands. She had 20 minutes. In the restroom off the main lobby, she changed into fresh flats and dabbed away the sweat on her neck. Her curls had frizzed from the rain, but she smoothed them down as best she could. The blazer held its shape, thank God. She looked in the mirror. You're here, she whispered. So act like it. The interview was in a sleek office on the 35th floor. Steel and glass, pale carpet, sharp lines. The receptionist gave her a clipboard and a polite smile. Tanya filled in the form with careful pen strokes, though her hand trembled with each line. She was ushered into a boardroom with two people waiting, a woman in a red jacket and a man with thin glasses. They introduced themselves quickly, their names flying past before she could lock them in. The questions started simple. Her resume, her college thesis, a story about a project she was proud of. Then came the curveball. Tell us about a time you missed an important deadline, the woman said, folding her hands on the table. Tanya hesitated. She could lie, say she always delivered, say she'd never missed anything. Or, I missed a flight this morning, she said quietly. To come here. The woman blinked. You missed the flight. I was at the gate on time, but on my way there I stopped to help an elderly man who had fallen. I stayed with him until help arrived. By then, the plane had taken off. The man raised an eyebrow. And you'll hear how. Tanya let the silence stretch a moment. A stranger helped me. She didn't add more. Let them sit with the weight of that. The rest of the interview passed like smoke. She smiled, answered, made her points, but part of her felt like she was watching from a few feet away. Outside, the sky had cleared into a pale blue. The city gleamed in the puddles. She walked to the corner bodega to grab a bottle of water and an energy bar. Her phone buzzed just as she stepped out. A message from a blocked number. You're not done yet. Her heart jolted. She looked around. No one was near her. The street was crowded, but no faces looked familiar. She stared at the message again, thumb hovering. No reply option. She pulled out the card from her blazer pocket. Come find me. She flipped it over. There was nothing on the back until she held it toward the sunlight. Then faint lettering appeared, pressed into the paper like a hidden watermark. 144, St. James Place. Brooklyn. Ask for the window seat. She could have gone back to her hotel. Called her mom. Let the day settle. But Tanya didn't get on that second flight just to play it safe. The train ride to Brooklyn was a rattling, rhythmic blur. She tried to guess what 144 St. James Place might be, a bookstore, a coffee shop, some kind of recruiting office, or something she hadn't imagined yet. When she got there, it was a diner, a small one, brick facade, hand-painted sign. No flashy lights. The kind of place you'd miss if you weren't looking for it. She stepped inside. The smell of frying onions and coffee hit her like a hug. Booths lined the windows. One older man reading a newspaper. A waitress pouring a refill. Soft Motown playing from a dusty jukebox. She walked to the counter. Hi, she said quietly. I'm supposed to ask for the window seat. The waitress, white hair in a bun, eyes sharp and kind, nodded like she'd been expecting her. Right this way, baby. She led Tanya to a booth in the back corner. A window overlooked the street. On the table sat a cup of coffee, black and steaming. Tanya Saturday. The waitress didn't leave. Instead, she slid a folded note across the table. No envelope. Just plain paper, folded neat. Tanya opened it. Inside was a name. Ellison Foundation. 3rd floor. Tomorrow. Noon. She looked up. Is this from? But the waitress was already gone. Tanya leaned back in the booth. Watched the steam curl from the coffee cup. People walked by outside, their lives spinning on, unaware that something bigger had just cracked open inside her. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like just a simple woman from Atlanta taking care of her mama and chasing jobs that never called back. She felt chosen. The coffee was still hot. She took a sip. Tanya barely slept. Back at the hotel, she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the folded note beside her, the coffee taste still lingering on her tongue. Every time she closed her eyes, the day replayed like a movie she couldn't pause. A missed flight. An old man on the floor. A stranger with her name on a first-class ticket. A card. A check. A message. A diner. And now, this Ellison Foundation. 3rd floor. Noon. It all felt too big. Too unreal. But the paper in her hand was real. So was the check, still untouched in her bag. So was the memory of the man's eyes at the airport, the way he looked at her like he'd been waiting to meet her. Around 3 a.m., she finally fell asleep, fully dressed, phone clutched in one hand. By 11:15 the next morning, she was standing outside a tall, nondescript brownstone in Brooklyn, her blazer freshly pressed and her nerves buzzing. The plaque by the door was small, Airline Foundation. By appointment only. She buzzed. A click sounded. The door opened. Inside, the lobby was quiet, lined with framed photos of communities, volunteers, schools. No corporate logos. No receptionist. Just a narrow staircase leading up. Tanya climbed. The third floor was all windows and soft light. A woman in her 50s sat at a desk by the entrance. Her skin was a warm umber, and she wore a deep green head wrap, a wide smile, and no makeup. "You must be Tanya," she said, standing. "I am," Tanya replied. "I got a note. You're right on time. Go on in. He's waiting." The woman stepped aside and opened the door. Tanya walked in. The office was more library than boardroom. Books lined the walls. No screens. No laptops. Just a long wooden table in the center, scattered with notes, legal pads, and a single glass of water. And there, sitting in a simple armchair by the window, was the old man from the airport. Not the son, the father, the one she had helped. His cane leaned against the wall. He looked better now, awake, sharp, wearing a dark cardigan over a crisp shirt. He smiled when he saw her. "Tanya." She stepped forward slowly, unsure whether to shake his hand, hug him, sit down, or leave. I wasn't expecting." He waved her to a chair across from him. "Come, sit. You've had a strange couple of days." She sat. "I wanted to thank you properly," he said, with no suits or games. "I didn't help you for thanks." "I know," he said simply. "That's why you're here." Tanya took a slow breath. "What is this, exactly? Some kind of recruitment test? Is this for a job? A scholarship? I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing." "You're not supposed to be doing anything yet," he said, eyes steady. "You were supposed to be seen." She frowned. "Seen by who?" "My son, Charles. He runs Airline Air now. Big title, big office. But I built this," he motioned around him, "with people, not spreadsheets." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Most folks look away when they see pain. You didn't." "I was just doing what I'd want someone to do for my mom," Tanya said quietly. "Exactly." He reached into a folder on the table and pulled out another piece of paper. Not a check this time, an offer letter. Tanya read the first line. Position, Director of Community Impact Programs, Airline Foundation. Her eyes moved down. Salary, $125,000 per year, full benefits. Start date, flexible. Location, remote, with travel. Purpose, to build, lead, and fund initiatives across the country that find and empower people like you. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. What? "We don't do traditional hiring," the old man said. "We find people with heart, and then we get out of their way." Tanya shook her head slowly, voice cracking. "But I don't have a master's. I've never managed a team. I live with my mother in a 2-bedroom in Southwest Atlanta. I was on food stamps last year. And now you're not." Her hands were trembling. "What if I mess this up?" she whispered. He gave her a soft smile. "What if you don't?" Silence stretched between them. The floor creaked under her foot. Outside, a siren wailed faintly in the distance. Then he added, "And if you're not ready, you can walk away. Take the check, walk out that door, and this will all be a story you tell someday." She looked at the paper again, then at him. "I'm not walking away," she said. An hour later, Tanya stepped back onto the street, blinking against the sun. Her hands were empty now. The offer letter was locked in her bag. The check was still unsigned. She walked 2 blocks in a daze. Stopped at a bench. Saturday. Her phone buzzed. Blocked number. This time, she answered. "Hello." A voice on the other end, a woman's, spoke. "He told me to tell you something." "Who?" "The man you helped." Tanya stood, breath catching. "What?" He said, "Sometimes the flight you miss puts you on the one you're meant to catch." Then the line went dead. Tanya stood there, heart in her throat, wondering what else had just begun. Tanya sat on that bench for a long time after the call ended, watching people pass by like moving pieces in a world she suddenly didn't feel behind in anymore. She wasn't chasing now. She was part of it, maybe even ahead of it. For the first time in her life, she felt like the world had paused just long enough to see her. She didn't know exactly what her job would be. She didn't know what Director of Community Impact Programs truly meant. But for the first time in a long while, that not knowing didn't feel like failure. It felt like permission. She dialed her mother. "Hey, Ma," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "You made it to the interview." "I did." "How'd it go?" Tanya exhaled slowly. I think I'm about to do something big." Her mother paused. "How big?" "Like, life-changing." The quiet on the other end wasn't worry. It was wait. Her mother understood exactly what those two words meant. "Do they know how smart you are?" "I think they do now." Her mother didn't cry, but her voice wobbled. "I always knew you were gonna be more than what this city gave you." Tanya felt tears pool at the corner of her eyes. "It's happening, Ma. I'm scared, but it's happening." "You don't have to stop being scared. Just don't stop walking." The next morning, a black sedan pulled up in front of her hotel. No one had told her it was coming. The driver simply stepped out and said, "Miss Hill," like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. He opened the back door. Inside, Tanya found a leather folder waiting on the seat with her name embossed in the corner. Inside was an itinerary. Week 1, orientation at the Airline Foundation, Brooklyn. Week 2, field site visit, New Orleans. Week 3, leadership seminar, Chicago. There were names of people she'd meet, communities she'd be working with, grants she'd be reviewing. But right at the top was a handwritten note. "This isn't about fixing broken things. It's about investing in the people who never got a fair shot. People like you." It wasn't signed, but she knew whose handwriting it was. She recognized the tilt of the RS. As the car pulled away from the curb, Tanya pressed her forehead to the cool window. The city rolled past again, same buildings, same people. But now everything looked different. Sharper, clearer. She was no longer here trying to squeeze into the world. She was here to help reshape it. The Airline Foundation's main office on the 4th floor was busier than she expected. It wasn't corporate busy, no ties, no buzzwords, but real movement. People talking fast, laughing, arguing gently about numbers scrawled on whiteboards. A woman in overalls and a hijab was giving a presentation on clean water programs in the Midwest. A man in a wheelchair rolled by holding 2 iced coffees and a dog-eared folder under his chin. Someone yelled, "Anybody seen my damn stapler?" and 3 people answered at once. Tanya stood in the doorway for a moment, overwhelmed by the beautiful mess of it. Then the woman from the front desk appeared beside her. "Come on, Miss Hill, you're with me." They walked past the open floor and into a smaller side room. A long table, 5 other people sitting at it. Each looked up when she entered. "Tanya," the woman said, "meet the others." A young Latino man with a buzz cut nodded first. "Carlos," he said, "Detroit, non-profit organizer." A short black woman in a sharp white dress leaned forward. "Naima, Tech Justice in Oakland. You're the one who helped the old man, right?" Tanya blinked. "You know about that." Carlos grinned. "We all do. That's why we're here." A tall woman with gray locks gave a soft laugh. "Welcome to the we didn't plan on this, but we said yes anyway club." Tanya Saturday. Her hands still shook, just a little, under the table. "I don't know what I'm doing yet," she admitted. Naima shrugged. "None of us do. That's the point." By lunchtime, Tanya had been briefed on 3 major initiatives she'd be shadowing: a grant program for black-owned farms in Mississippi, a reentry housing project for women recently released from prison, and a mentorship network for first-gen college students in Philly. Each project had history, struggle, layers of complexity, and each one was led by someone who reminded her of home. She wasn't there to fix them. She was there to listen, amplify, and figure out how to channel money where it mattered. Ellison didn't just fund things, they backed people. At 2:30, a text came through. "He wants to see you. 3rd floor. Now." Tanya excused herself and headed down. She found the old man sitting outside on a small rooftop terrace, legs crossed, sipping mint tea like he had all the time in the world. The skyline behind him looked hand-drawn. "Sit," he said, without turning. Tanya did. "I don't want to waste your time," he said, "so I'll be direct. I've watched a lot of good people burn out trying to change things." "I'm not trying to be a hero," she said softly. Good. Heroes don't last. I need people who'll build slow, then stay. She nodded. I want that. He turned to her. You think you missed your flight? She smiled faintly. Felt like it. You didn't miss it. You traded it. Big difference. Silence. Then he added, the man you helped, me. I had 5 people walk past me before you stopped. One of them worked for this company. He's not here anymore. Tanya stiffened. I test character, he said, because this work will test yours. She looked out at the city. The rooftops stretched like a puzzle, each piece touching another. I don't know if I'm ready, she said. You are. He stood slowly, cane in hand. Now go make sure someone else gets their flight. And with that, he walked back inside, leaving her on the roof, blinking into the light. Tanya Hill didn't know what came next, but she knew this. She hadn't missed her moment. She'd stepped into it, and she wasn't looking back. Tanya was sitting at a round table in the Foundation's communal kitchen, laptop open, heart racing, when she saw the notification pop up in her inbox. Subject, Initial Field Visit, New Orleans. Departure, Monday 7 a.m. Lead contact, Jalen Reese. Project, Rebuild 9th. She read it twice, then once more, just to be sure. She was being sent, not to sit in the back and observe, but to lead point on a needs assessment for a post-hurricane housing initiative. It wasn't just a chance to learn, it was a chance to shape something. Real people, real impact, no training wheels. Across from her, Naima raised an eyebrow. You look like someone who just got drafted into something big. I'm going to New Orleans, Tanya said, voice barely above a whisper. Already? Damn, girl, Naima grinned. You move fast. Tanya laughed once, almost surprised at the sound. I don't even know what to pack. Like, do I bring heels or hard boots? Carlos walked by holding a box of grant applications. In New Orleans, bring both. Might need one for the mud and one for the boardroom. Tanya nodded, trying to play it cool. But her chest buzzed. Not with nerves this time, with urgency. She needed to do this right. Her flight left before the sun rose. No missed flights this time. She arrived at the gate 2 hours early, sat by the window with a bagel and a small notebook, and wrote out a list of everything she didn't know. How to assess a damaged housing grid. How to manage community tensions. How to spot a shady contractor. How to keep a promise bigger than yourself. And under that, she scribbled something her mother used to say when Tanya had anxiety before a school presentation. Start with your ears, not your mouth. Jalen Reese met her at the airport in New Orleans with a half-drunk iced coffee and a baseball cap that said Rebuild 9th. He was early 30s, all limbs and motion, with a voice like slow jazz. You must be Tanya Hill, he said, sticking out a hand. Yep, that's me. He gave her a long look, curious, not skeptical. You don't look like one of those clipboard people. Not sure if that's a compliment or a warning. It's a compliment. The 9th Ward was different than she remembered from TV, less ruined, more resilient. Colorful shotgun houses lined narrow blocks, some half rebuilt, some fresh with new paint, and some still hollowed out like ghosts no one knew how to bury. Jalen drove slowly, pointing things out. That house there? Miss Claudine, 92 years old, still grows okra and scolds her grandkids with a fly swatter. That one? Used to be a church. We trying to turn it into a co-op space for single moms. Tanya jotted notes, asking quiet questions. What happened to this block? Red tape. FEMA funds got tied up. Developers tried to come in with bad deals. We're holding it down, but it's fragile. One greedy deal could gut the whole thing. He parked in front of a community center with hand-painted murals on every wall. Inside, Tanya met half a dozen local organizers, builders, grant writers, grandmothers with clipboards and zero patience for nonsense. She didn't pitch herself. She asked questions, listened, took notes. She learned fast. Everyone there had seen people come and go. People who promised and disappeared. If she wanted to help, she'd have to do more than talk. She'd have to show up. And stay. That night, back in the tiny guest room above the rec center, Tanya sat on the floor in leggings and a t-shirt, phone pressed to her ear. Her mother answered on the second ring. You sound tired, her mom said. I am, but in a good way. You eat something real. Not unless red beans and rice count as a vegetable. Her mom laughed. Then Tanya's voice dropped. Ma, this place? It's beautiful. And broken. But people are fighting to fix it. And they let me in like I belong here. You do. I don't want to mess this up. You won't, her mom said. Just don't come in like you have all the answers. You never liked people who did that to you. Tanya was quiet for a beat. You think this is really what I meant to do? Her mom didn't hesitate. I think you were born to make people feel seen. Tanya swallowed hard. Love you, Ma. Love you more. Now go change the world one block at a time. The next morning, Tanya helped gut a half-collapsed porch. The day after that, she sat in on a zoning board meeting where two developers tried to buy up land from black homeowners at half the value. Jalen passed her a note mid-meeting. See how they frame it like a rescue? She did, and when she stood up to speak, voice a little shaky, hands clenched under the table, she didn't quote stats. She told them about her mama, about the old man at the airport, about what it meant to stay when it was easier to walk away. And somehow, they listened. By the end of the week, Tanya had dirt under her nails and 3 new spreadsheets in her inbox. But more than that, she had the start of something harder to measure. Respect, trust, a place at the table she didn't have to beg for. Her final night in New Orleans, Jalen walked her to the corner of a block they'd visited on day 1. The sun was going down. A kid rode by on a bike too big for him. Somewhere, someone played trombone just off-key. Jalen said, You know, the first time I met Charles Ellison, I thought he was just another rich guy trying to sleep at night by funding guilt money. Tanya raised an eyebrow. Was he? No, he said. He was worse. He was trying to understand. She smiled. I think you'll like him, Jalen added. Only, you don't need to pretend you belong. You already do. They stood in silence a while. Then Jalen handed her a folded note. Same gold lettering as the one she'd received in Brooklyn. From the desk of Charles M. Ellison. She opened it. Good work. Come home. We just getting started. Tanya tucked the note into her back pocket. And she knew, without needing to ask, this wasn't just her first trip. It was her first return. The cab from LaGuardia rolled into Brooklyn just after midnight. Tanya sat in the back seat, forehead against the cool glass, watching the city blur by. She was exhausted, her muscles sore, her mind heavy. But it was the kind of tired that made you feel clean inside, like you'd earned the right to sit still for a moment. The foundation building was dark when she arrived, except for a single light on the 3rd floor. The elevator creaked open, and Tanya stepped out to find Charles Ellison himself waiting, holding 2 paper cups of coffee. You don't sleep? She asked, voice hoarse. I'll sleep when my work's done, he said, handing her a cup. That gives me about another 30 years. Tanya chuckled. This better be decaf. It's not. She sipped it anyway. Charles walked with her into the same conference room where she'd first met the other fellows. The table was empty now, the walls lined with whiteboards covered in notes, timelines, city names. Have a seat, he said. Tell me what you saw. She sat, closed her eyes for a second, then opened them and started talking. She told him about Miss Claudine, still growing vegetables and quoting scripture while waiting for her roof to be fixed, about the co-op space in the broken church, about the boys playing dominoes on a porch they rebuilt with their own hands. She told him about the developers, the quiet racism coded in language like revitalization and efficiency, the way whole communities could be erased with the stroke of a pen. Charles didn't interrupt. He just listened. When she finished, he nodded once. You're not just seeing problems, he said. You're seeing the roots. Tanya tilted her head. Isn't that the job? He smiled. You'd be surprised how many people forget that. He slid a folder across the table. Inside was a map, states shaded in red, blue, and green. Beneath it, a list of names, organizations, funding goals, and circled in black ink at the bottom. Hill Initiative, proposal due in 30 days. She blinked. What is this? Your first independent project. You've seen the work. Now shape it. Tanya's fingers trembled on the page. Wait, you want me to create something? Not something, he said. A program. A mission. Yours. She looked up, eyes wide. I don't know if I can. You don't need to know. You just need to begin. That night, in her small Brooklyn studio, bare walls, borrowed couch, new sheets from Target, Tanya spread the map across the kitchen table. She called her mother. I think they are letting me build something, she said. Letting you? Her mother said. You sure they are not just trying to catch up to you? Tanya laughed. It feels like more than I can carry. Then don't carry it. Lead it. Tanya looked at the name circled on the page again. Hill Initiative. Her name. The next few days were a whirlwind. She interviewed 3 schools in Mississippi with no working computers, a community farm in Baltimore with volunteers but no budget, a non-profit in Flint trying to replace old lead pipes one house at a time. She took notes, asked hard questions, ran numbers at midnight, cross-checking costs with logistics she was still learning how to spell. By the end of the week, she had a draft, bare bones, but real. The Hill Initiative, a multi-city program designed to locate, fund, and equip black-led grassroots efforts that have the trust of their communities but none of the capital. No applications. No forms. We go to them, not the other way around. We ask one question, what do you need to grow what you've already started? Then we do the damn thing. She stared at it for a long time. Then hit print. On the day of her pitch, she stood at the front of a glass conference room surrounded by foundation staff, fellows, and Charles himself. Her blazer was pressed. Her hair was up. But her voice, when she started, was quiet. My name is Tanya Hill, she began, and 2 weeks ago, I missed a flight. It felt like a loss. But I understand now, it was an invitation. She told them about New Orleans, about the weight of invisible work, about how many people spend their lives shouting into a storm with no one to echo them back. They don't need saviors, she said. They need believers and backers. She clicked to the next slide, and I'm here to back them. When it was over, no one clapped. Not right away. Then Charles stood, the old man with the quiet eyes, and he did something Tanya hadn't seen him do once before. He smiled, not politely, not with strategy, with pride. You've got your wings, Miss Hill, he said. Then, to the room, give her the runway. That night, Tanya walked home through the city, the spring air thick with jasmine and car horns, her heart full of something she still didn't have a name for. Not success. Not exactly. Something better. She passed a woman struggling with a stroller at the corner and stopped to help lift it over the curb. Thank you, the woman said, breathless. No problem, Tanya replied. And as she walked on, she thought, what if the world really does change one choice at a time? She had missed a flight, and it had changed her life. Now it was her turn to offer someone else the same chance. She picked up her pace. There was work to do. The Hill Initiative launched with no fanfare. No press release. No big headline. Just a quiet start in a quiet office 2 floors below the Ellison Foundation's main wing. Tanya didn't want noise. She wanted motion. She painted her own sign, white letters on a piece of reclaimed wood. Start here. It hung crooked on the wall. She left it that way. By week 3, Tanya had reviewed 27 leads. Not applications. She wasn't taking those. Instead, her team was combing through word-of-mouth, local message boards, Black Twitter, church newsletters, even barbershop flyers. If someone was doing good work, Tanya wanted to hear about it. Not polished work. Not non-profit certified or tax break polished. Real work. That's how she found Mama Reese's pantry. Not through a spreadsheet. Through a voicemail. Hey. This is Andre, the voice had said. I don't know if this is the kind of thing you'll help with, but my grandma's been feeding folks out of her garage for years. She ain't got permits. She don't have a website, but she keeps the lights on for people who don't have anywhere else to go. Somebody told me you might be different. So, yay. If you can, come see her. Tanya didn't even finish her yogurt before packing a bag. The pantry was in a faded blue ranch house on the east side of Raleigh. One broken mailbox, a sagging fence, and a steady line of people waiting under the hot North Carolina sun. Tanya stood at the back of the line and waited. She could have announced herself, skipped ahead, flash a card, name-drop the foundation. But she didn't. She waited her turn. When she got to the front, a short, wide-shouldered woman with deep laugh lines handed her a paper plate full of fried fish, collard greens, and a single square of cornbread. First time, the woman asked. Yes, Then you get peach tea. I don't care if it's hot out. Tanya smiled. You Mama Reese. Last I checked. Tanya held up her plate. Mind if I eat and ask a few questions? They sat on the back porch, peeling paint flaking off the railing, the hum of cicadas thick in the air. I never wanted to run a pantry, Mama Reese said. Just wanted to make sure my neighbors ate. Tanya nodded. When did you start? Round 2006, after the plant layoffs. My nephew brought me 10 loaves of bread that were gonna be tossed. I called 3 friends. We fed 22 people that night. And now? Last week we fed 167. Mostly kids and elders. Tanya looked around. What do you need? Reese sipped her tea. Not a board of directors. Not a logo. Just a bigger fridge. A delivery truck that doesn't stall in second gear. Maybe some shelves that don't lean like they drunk. Tanya wrote it all down. Someone tried to save us once, Reese said, voice flat. Came in with big promises. Tried to turn this place into something shiny. Took pictures. Got funding. Then disappeared. Left us with a half-built shed and no phone calls. I'm not them, Tanya said. I believe you. But I'm still gonna make you prove it. Back in Brooklyn, Tanya met with Charles. She doesn't want growth, she told him. She wants stability. He leaned back in his chair. So give her that. We'd have to work outside our usual logistics, source fridges through local co-ops, not big retailers. Use small-town vendors. Offer flexible grants that can be split across supply chains, not just direct costs. Then build the model. Tanya looked at him. We've never done it that way. He smiled. We hadn't done you before, either. 2 weeks later, a new fridge arrived at Mama Reese's. So did custom shelving, a gently used delivery van, and a part-time driver, Andre, her grandson, paid through a 6-month starter stipend from the Hill Initiative. Tanya didn't post about it, but she got a photo in her inbox one night. Reese, standing next to the new fridge, middle finger extended to the sky, grinning like a queen. The subject line, told you I'd make you prove it. Tanya laughed so hard she cried. The momentum built quickly. Next came a mobile bookshop in Birmingham, run out of a decommissioned school bus by a queer couple who did weekly literacy pop-ups in low-income housing areas. Then a daycare in Jackson that only operated at night, run by a team of single moms who knew what shift work did to families. Then a crew of high school boys in Philly who ran a shoe-cleaning business on the corner and offered free tutorials to younger kids after school. Each project had no funding, no structure, no permission. Each was the seed of something massive. All they needed was someone to water it. By midsummer, the Hill Initiative had backed 19 microgrants and quietly absorbed 2 failing programs that were about to close. Tanya's team had grown to 4, and the crooked sign that said "Start Here" was now surrounded by photos, handshakes, block parties, ribbon cuttings, and one blown-up picture of Reese flipping the bird. When Charles stopped by the office one afternoon, he studied that wall for a long time. You've done more in 2 months than most people do in 2 years, he said. Tanya shrugged. I'm just connecting dots. You're rewriting the map, he said. Don't forget that. She didn't know how to answer, so she just nodded. Then he turned and added, almost as an afterthought, I've got a seat opening on the Foundation's national board. Think about it. And he walked out, leaving Tanya standing in her office, heart pounding, wondering, how far could this go? And was she really ready to lead it there? She looked at the photo of the boys in Philly, the bookshop bus, the peach tea porch. Then she picked up the phone. She wasn't just going to think about it. She was going to ask what that seat could do. Tanya didn't sleep that night. She'd done that thing where you turn off the lights and lie down, but your mind throws on a spotlight and starts rehearsing every possible outcome of something you didn't ask for, but now can't stop wanting. A seat on the national board. The words kept circling. It wasn't just the title. It was what came with it. Influence, visibility, power. The kind of seat where decisions about millions of dollars get made. Where the phrase with fun that could shape a neighborhood or erase one. It terrified her. Not because she didn't want it. Because she did. The next morning, Tanya stood in front of the mirror in the tiny bathroom of her Brooklyn apartment, staring at her reflection like it had answers she didn't. Are you about to lose your mind? She whispered. or find your voice. Her phone buzzed. It was Naima. Saw the calendar invite. Board meeting next week? You good? Tanya stared at the screen for a second before texting back. Ask me after I throw up. Naima replied instantly. Girl, power looks good on you. Go get it. The board meeting was held in the Ellison Foundation's formal conference wing, glass walls, polished floors, a view of a city that stretched like ambition. Tanya had never stepped foot in this part of the building before. It felt like walking into someone else's future. Charles met her at the elevator. No pressure, he said. They've already seen what you've done. You're not asking for a job. You're bringing results. I didn't come here to campaign. Good, he said. You came here to shift the room. Inside, there were 7 people already seated. Suits, slacks, and half-interested eyes. Tanya recognized 2 from press releases she'd studied online. One woman, sharp jaw, silver streak in her hair, nodded at Tanya like she already knew everything about her. The meeting began. They talked numbers first. Grant cycles, endowments, return on social impact investment. Tanya listened, took notes, and waited. Then Charles cleared his throat. I'd like to introduce a proposal, he said, for a new seat on this board. Reserved for Foundation Fellow. Rotating every 24 months. First nomination, Tanya Hill. The room shifted. Eyebrows raised. A few pages turned. One man pursed his lips like he'd bitten into a lemon. The silver-haired woman spoke first. Her program's only 3 months old. And already delivering faster than our last 2 fiscal initiatives combined, Charles said. I don't object to her results, the man said, lemon face. Tanya noted. But is she ready for this level of leadership? Charles smiled. Let's ask her. The room turned to Tanya. She stood, took a breath, and spoke. I've spent my whole life on the outside of rooms like this, she began, watching decisions get made by people who've never had to sit across from someone choosing between groceries and rent. No one moved. I'm not here because I asked to be seen. I'm here because I refused to look away when someone else needed help. That's who I've always been. That's who this foundation says it supports. If that's still true, then this seat isn't about me. She paused. It's about keeping a promise. Silence. Then the silver-haired woman leaned back and said quietly, I vote yes. One by one, the others followed. Some enthusiastic, some reserved. Lemonface hesitated the longest. But even he nodded. Tanya didn't cry. Not yet. She just sat down. After the meeting, Charles joined her in the hallway. You didn't flinch, he said. I almost passed out, Tanya replied. He chuckled. I meant what I said, she told him. This seat, it's not about me. It's about the people we say we care about. He looked at her. Serious now. Then don't ever let this seat silence you. I won't. Good, because some of them will try. Later that night, Tanya called her mother from the fire escape, legs dangling off the edge like she used to do as a kid on her front porch. Hey Ma, she said, you sound different. I'm on the board. For a second, all Tanya heard was the low hum of traffic below her. Then her mother said softly, told you they'd catch up to you. Tanya smiled into the dark. Still a long way to go. And it was, because the next morning, a letter arrived, slipped under her office door. No return address, just her name, in looping blue ink. Inside, a photo of her speaking at the board meeting. On the back, someone had written, You're not invisible anymore. That scares people. Don't let them shrink you. Tanya sat down. Read it again. Then she pinned it to the wall above her desk, right next to the photo of Mama Risi, and got back to work. A month passed. Then 2. By September, Tanya's face had appeared on 2 magazine covers, Impact Now and Community Quarterly, without her permission. She hadn't even known about the second one until Carlos texted her a picture from an airport newsstand. Girl, you famous. Buy me a sandwich. Tanya didn't feel famous. She felt like she was standing under a spotlight with no cue cards. Every move mattered now. Every word could be quoted, every silence misunderstood. She hated the attention, but she understood it. The Hill Initiative wasn't just succeeding. It was rewriting the way people thought about grassroots funding. No applications. No bureaucracy. Just human trust and hard proof. Naturally, that made some people nervous. And now, They were starting to push back. It started with the emails. From inside the foundation, subtle and careful. Subject, clarification on initiative oversight. CC, legal, operations. The message was full of warm corporate air. We're reviewing cross-departmental protocols to ensure the Hill Initiative aligns with our governance model and risk exposure. Would you be available for a brief call to discuss compliance expectations? Tanya read it twice, then once more. Translation: You're moving too fast, and you're making us look slow. Charles didn't seem surprised when she brought it up. They want you to get smaller, he said. I thought I had their backing. You do, until you make them question how little they're actually doing. Tanya leaned forward in her chair. This is what we promised, right? That we'd fund the people who never get funded. It was a good promise, he said. You're the one actually keeping it. 2 days later, she got a call from a small grant-funded food co-op in South Memphis. Their walk-in freezer had died. A quarter of their produce spoiled. They needed $12,000 to fix it fast, or they'd lose their contracts with local schools. Tanya didn't hesitate. She routed the funds within hours. 3 days after that, she was pulled into a meeting with Foundation Counsel. Did you run that decision through finance? The lead attorney asked. They didn't need paperwork. They needed a freezer. The attorney blinked. Our legal structure requires. Our legal structure isn't feeding kids, Tanya snapped. Silence. Then, you're out of compliance with our discretionary funding limits. I didn't take a salary for 3 months, she said calmly. That's your compliance. They stared at each other. She didn't blink. Later that week, her name appeared in a donor memo leaked online. Concerns over governance structure of Hill Initiative, lack of transparency, suggestions to scale back discretionary powers. Tanya read it on her phone, sitting on the curb outside a community-build site in Tulsa, covered in paint, hands still shaking from drilling drywall. She read it again, not because it surprised her, but because it hurt. The very thing they celebrated in her was now being weaponized. That night, she sat alone in her hotel room, staring at the ceiling. She didn't want to call her mom, or Naima, or Charles. Not yet. She needed a minute to feel it. The betrayal. The weight. She thought of all the people who would be punished if she let this shake her. Reese's pantry. The night daycare. The shoe kids. The mobile bookshop. They weren't experiments to her. They were lives. And then she remembered something her mother once said after a social worker tried to take Tanya off Medicaid for missing an appointment. Sometimes, baby, they don't care if you do it right. They care that you weren't supposed to do it at all. The next morning, Tanya walked into the foundation and asked for the boardroom. She didn't wait for permission. She opened her laptop, connected it to the projector, and let the numbers speak first. $480,000 invested. 96% program retention. 0 reported misuse. 4 failing programs revived. Over 2,000 people directly impacted. Then she turned to the room. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here because we said we'd do better than paperwork. We said we'd meet people where they are. I'm doing that. She let the silence breathe. Then, if that makes you uncomfortable, I'm okay with that. But I'm not stopping. One by one, eyes lowered. Throats cleared. The numbers had already done the work. When she walked out, Charles was waiting in the hallway. He didn't say I'm proud of you. He didn't have to. That night, her phone buzzed. Blocked number. She answered. A quiet, familiar voice spoke. The old man from the airport. I told you they'd try to shrink you. Tanya smiled. I told you I don't bend. There was a pause. Then, warmly. Then don't stop flying, Miss Hill. Click. She looked out the window. The city was still awake. And so was she. Because you don't quit when you're questioned. You anchor. You double down. You raise your voice for the ones who never had a microphone. Tanya Hill wasn't running. She was rooted. And the storm could come. The storm did come. Not in a single crashing wave, but in steady, calculated ripples, small decisions in back rooms, whispered opinions passed in board meetings, doors that were once open now slightly ajar. Tanya felt it everywhere. Requests for meetings were suddenly rescheduled. Her name was left off calendar invites she used to lead. One high-level donor, an old man with a soft voice and a short memory, referred to her initiative as that young woman's passion project during a fundraiser brunch. The Hill Initiative was still delivering results, still feeding people, housing people, lifting people. But the foundation had started pretending it was an experiment instead of an example. She wasn't fired. She was iced. And she knew it. Charles called her into his office the following week. The first thing he said was, "They are afraid of you." Tanya crossed her arms. "I'm not trying to be scary. I'm trying to do the damn work. That's what scares them." He slid a folder across the table. A report from external auditors. The kind donors love. It was glowing. It validated her model, cost-effective, community-led, low waste, high retention. And yet, at the bottom of the page, someone had added a note in red pen. Further integration into core foundation protocols needed before expansion. Tanya stared at it. "They are putting you in a box," Charles said. "No," she replied. "They are building one and hoping I step into it myself." That night, Tanya sat on the roof of her building, legs crossed, phone in her lap, hoodie pulled up against the wind. She'd been quiet too long, careful too long. But there's a moment when you stop asking permission. When you realize the only thing more dangerous than speaking up is staying silent. She picked up her phone and hit record. "Hi," she said. "My name is Tanya Hill. Some of you know me. Most of you don't." She looked straight at the lens. "A while ago, I missed a flight. Not by accident, but because I stopped to help someone. That moment changed my life. I ended up working for a foundation that said it wanted to fund people like me, people who show up for others when no one's watching." She paused. "I believed in that mission. I still do. But lately, I've been asked to shrink, to slow down, to wait for permission before acting on what I know to be right." Her voice didn't shake. "I won't." She panned the camera toward the city skyline, then back to her. "I'm not calling anyone out. I'm calling in. If you're a teacher, a pantry worker, a neighbor who's been fighting alone, this is for you. I see you. I believe in your work. And I'm not going to wait for a green light to support it." She stopped the recording, posted it, then put her phone away. By morning, it had 18,000 views. By lunch, 72,000. By dinner, 310,000. The comments were filled with names, locations, stories, people who'd been told no so many times they stopped asking. And suddenly, they were asking again. One message simply read, "We thought no one saw us. Thank you." The foundation tried to spin it. Charles shut that down fast. "You gave her a seat," he reminded the board. "You don't get to tell her not to use it." Still, the tension crackled. Some wanted her to retract the video. Others claimed she violated internal communication protocols. Tanya responded by launching a public microgrant round with independent oversight, 5 small $5,000 grants, directly crowdsourced from people who had never received funding before. Applications opened at midnight. By 9 a.m., over 700 had poured in. And with it, the media. Suddenly, she wasn't just a name. She was a movement. But then came the message that changed everything. It wasn't an email, not a call, not a tweet. It was a letter, handwritten, no signature, postmarked from Atlanta. Inside was a photo. A younger Charles, maybe early 30s, standing with 3 black women in front of a burned-down storefront. One of them, sharp eyes, bold smile, was Tanya's mother. On the back, scribbled in ink, "Before they called us leaders, we were just tired people who refused to quit." Tanya called her mom that night. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Her mother's voice was calm. "You needed to build your own fight before you knew mine." At the next foundation board meeting, Tanya didn't wait to be asked to speak. She walked in early, set up a projector, and loaded photos, Reese's Pantry, the Shoe Kids, the book bus, the daycare, names, faces, cities. Then she looked around the table. "You hired me to fund people who were easy to ignore," she said. "Now that we've seen, you're asking us to sit back down." She shook her head. "I won't." Charles leaned forward. "So what do you want?" Tanya didn't flinch. "I want autonomy. A separate wing of the foundation, governed by its own advisory board made up of the very people we serve. No more guessing what they need. They'll help lead it." Lemonface spoke up. "That's never been done." Exactly, she said. Silence. Then the silver-haired woman nodded. I vote yes. Others followed. Lemonface hesitated, then raised his hand. It passed. After the meeting, Charles met her in the hallway. You sure you want to do this? Tanya nodded. It's the only way to do it right. He smiled. Then I'll back you. Later that night, back on the rooftop, Tanya stared out at the city. Lights flickered like Morse code. Her phone buzzed again, another thank you message from someone she'd never met. She didn't reply. She just read it and held it in her chest like a promise. She hadn't planned to lead. She'd just refused to look away. And now, the door wasn't just open. She was holding it wide. The first official meeting of the new wing, the Hill Collective, was held not in a sleek Brooklyn office, but in a church basement in Cleveland. The folding chairs didn't match. The lights flickered. There was one old fan in the corner working overtime. Tanya stood at the front, holding a dry erase marker with no cap, in front of a whiteboard someone had dragged in from the kids' Sunday school room. The 7 people in front of her were not executives, not board members, not donors. They were organizers, survivors, volunteers, a librarian from Detroit, a single dad from Albuquerque who ran a midnight meal program out of his garage, a high school principal from Oakland, a nurse who'd opened her living room to houseless women during the pandemic and never closed it again. They weren't there to be thanked. They were there to govern. Tanya drew a big, uneven circle on the board. No boardrooms, no rows. We move like this, she said, tapping the circle. We lead from the middle. No more asking what people need. We ask them to tell us. Someone asked, "What's your role now?" She smiled. Same as yours. The room sat in silence for a beat. Then the man from Albuquerque, Marcus, grinned and said, "So we get to vote on how the money moves. Every dollar." He leaned back in his chair and let out a low whistle. Well, damn. Back in Brooklyn, the foundation adjusted awkwardly. Some donors were thrilled. Some grumbled. One resigned, claiming Tanya's decentralized, emotional approach was too chaotic for long-term forecasting. Tanya didn't argue. She let the data speak. In 6 months, the Hill Collective funded 43 initiatives in 22 cities, with an administrative overhead 40% lower than traditional grant-making programs. Their model was studied at 2 universities. A philanthropist in London emailed her asking for notes. But Tanya stayed focused on the people. One evening, after a long day of site visits, she got a video message from the Reese Pantry crew. A bunch of kids, all under 12, holding up handmade signs. We got a walk-in freezer. And Reese made U.S. chicken. Thank you, Miss Tanya. Behind them, Reese waved a spatula and yelled, "She still ain't got no logo, but she got heart." Tanya laughed so hard she nearly dropped her phone. A few weeks later, she was walking through Terminal C at JFK, of all places, heading to catch a flight to Houston for a new housing pilot, when she paused in front of a gate she hadn't thought about in a long time. Gate C-19. Her flight from Atlanta to New York, the one she'd missed all those months ago. Same gate, same chairs, same smell of burnt pretzels and tired families. She sat down for a minute, looked around, and thought, what if I'd walked past him that day? The question still sent a chill down her spine. Because if she had, no Reese, no Hill Initiative, no board seat, no collective, no anything, just a safe, predictable life. One she would have outgrown without ever realizing it. She almost didn't notice the man who sat beside her. Clean khakis, quiet shoes. He looked vaguely familiar. He leaned over, gently. "You're Tanya Hill, right?" She turned. "Yes. My name's Daniel. I work logistics for Listen A. You probably don't remember me, but I was one of the people who walked past you when you were helping that man." Tanya froze. Daniel's face flushed. "I saw you holding him up. Saw his cane. I looked at the time. I kept walking." He looked down. "I'm sorry." Tanya studied him for a second. Not unkindly. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because," he said, "I've been thinking about that day ever since. I changed jobs. I started volunteering. He looked up, eyes wet. "I wanted you to know that someone saw what you did, and it mattered." She stared at him, not with judgment, just the quiet weight of full-circle truth. Then she nodded once. Good, she said. Keep going. He stood, still embarrassed. Thank you. As he walked away, Tanya sat back and breathed. She boarded her flight, found her seat, closed her eyes. She didn't know what city would come next, what person, what choice. But she knew this. You don't always get to see the ripples you make. You just make them. One choice, one voice, one moment where you stay when it's easier to walk away. She missed a flight once, and that choice had started something she could never have planned. She hadn't just caught a better flight. She'd helped build a runway for everyone else. And now she was in the air, still climbing, still watching, still making room. The seatbelt light turned off. Tanya opened her laptop and got back to work.